Today in episode 39 of the podcast, we'll be talking about Disney Plus joining Netflix and blocking password sharing, and a RoboCop TV series is in the works at Prime Video. We'll also be breaking down the 6th and 7th episodes of Lord of the Rings: The Rings of Power Season 2, and reviewing the movie The Wild Robot. I'm Brad, he's Josh, and welcome to We'll Bring the Popcorn.
Before we jump into the news this week, it is officially fall, and with that, we have brand new merch for the fall season. Brad is wearing our new Godzilla-inspired We'll Bring the Popcorn t-shirt. You can get that there. We're also going to have new hoodies and beanies just in time for the fall and colder weather months, so get your hands on those as soon as you can. And with that, we are also announcing a brand new giveaway. So for the month of October, if you go to willbringthepopcorn.com/giveaway, you could be entered for a chance to win not only a size of your own choosing, Godzilla-inspired We'll Bring the Popcorn t-shirt, you're also going to get this copy of Godzilla -1, the special 4K edition. This is with English subtitles, but you also, in this, you get not only Godzilla -1, you get Godzilla -1 minus color with it as well.
Yeah, which I still feel minus color was my favorite version of
Absolutely.
it added so much more drama and fear and dread and stuff to Godzilla. So yeah, both of them are on here. The special Japanese edition, so it does have the English subtitles. Some of the special bonus features are still all in Japanese, but this is one of the only ways that you can get Godzilla -1 on physical is this box set right here.
Yeah, and we're looking forward to that giveaway. So like we said, go to willbringthepopcorn.com/giveaway. No purchase is required to enter into the giveaway, but as always, you can go to that website and also check out our merch store for the brand new merch and get yourself some nice new swag for the holiday season that's coming up. So we're excited for that.
Yeah, the merch and the giveaway will both start October 1st. The giveaway will end on October 25th, and we'll have the winner announced on that episode, which will probably be our Halloween episode.
Yeah, so get your entries in as soon as you can. This is definitely a fun one you want to win.
Yeah, so we got to start today off on another somber note. So we have the just absolutely incredible Dame Maggie Smith passed away at the age of 89, of course, and an entire generation knows her as Professor McGonagall from the Harry Potter films.
Absolutely.
She was brilliant in that role, but she's also known for Downton Abbey, and she's been at it for a very long time. She won Oscars for, The Prime of Miss Jean Brodie in California State back in the 70s and 80s, so she's had such a big storied career. She's an amazing actress. I absolutely loved her as Professor McGonagall, but she's been in so much amazing stuff, and just our thoughts and everything goes out to her family and friends with her passing. Again, 89, but she just, it's sad to see her go. That's another Harry Potter actor. We have almost the main teachers. That's 5 of them now that have passed.
Yeah, what an absolutely incredible career she had. She was also in one of our guilty pleasure favorite movies. She played Wendy in Hook.
Oh, yeah.
That was another one that, from our youth that, I really resonated with me, that she did such an amazing job as the older version of Wendy in that story. Incredible film as well. But, man, so many amazing things she was in over the years. Like you said, to play such an iconic role like Professor McGonagall, who's one of the most important teachers outside of, Professor Dumbledore in Hogwarts, and just an absolute legend. I know everybody was devastated to hear the news of her passing. I know a lot of the cast has already come out and, given their thoughts and went in depth on what their relationship with her meant to them, and just an absolutely sad passing for somebody who had such an amazing career. She's been in the entertainment industry for well over 6 decades at this point, and 89 is, a life well lived, and it still doesn't feel like we had her around long enough, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But Downton Abbey as well recently was just absolutely fantastic show. She won accolades for that as well, and just any award you can think of, and for acting and performing, if she didn't win it, she was at least nominated for it. And, being a 2-time Oscar winner, not a lot of people are on that list. A lot of people are lucky to win 1. She's won 2.
She's won BAFTAs and Emmys and more. So she was I think she was just, a Tony off of the EGOT?
Yes.
I think or a Grammy, so she didn't have a Grammy as well. But, she won a lot of awards. Amazing
career. Our thoughts go out with her and her family, and to Harry Potter fans especially everywhere, to lose, one of the more iconic characters in that. I know a lot of people, when I shared a post of her passing, a lot of people were commenting with the gifs of the wands up for Professor McGonagall kind of, tribute to her, and just an absolutely amazing actor and an amazing legend that, will definitely be missed in the entertainment industry for sure.
Yeah, and speaking about a role in Hook, I saw someone put up something which I didn't fully look into how valid it was, but I looked at it, that there was a line in the movie about, like, it'd been 10 years between, like, since she really saw Peter as Peter Pan, and she passed away almost, it's nearly 10 years since Robin Williams did. So like that connection was just like, oh wow, like that's crazy to see.
Definitely goosebump inducing, but what an amazing career she had, an imprint on the industry that, very few get to make, and she left a very big gap in her passings for sure. And our thoughts are out, like we said, to her family, friends, anybody who's witnessed any of her work that's fans of what she did, our thoughts go out to everybody on that one. I want to move a little bit into, there's no easy way to pivot out of that, so we're just going to do a hard 180, and we've been talking about the casting for Hal Jordan in the new Lantern series. We finally got a lead, and it kind of came out a little bit of left field depending on who you ask, but the new Hal Jordan in the Lantern series is going to be Kyle Chandler. Now, Kyle Chandler is a fantastic actor. He's in one of my probably top 10 to 15 TV shows of all time, in Friday Night Lights. He was absolutely brilliant in the lead of that. And, this is one that leads me to wonder what they're going to do with Hal Jordan in this and how long he's going to be on the show.
The first thought that came into my head when I saw that he was up for it and then signed on for it was him in a Green Lantern costume, standing in front of the other lanterns, giving a Friday Night Lights speech.
The clear eyes, full hearts, can't lose speech. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, because his name wasn't really in the running. We didn't hear, because we had Brolin, we had
big names.
Matthew McConaughey. We had a lot of different names that were up for it. And he wasn't one that was mentioned, but he's got it. And it does seem like, as we talked about, they're going for much older actors here. So they're going for an older Hal. We think possibly maybe we'll see Hal Jordan either dying or losing his ring or something, happening to him, because we see these bigger names passed on it. Maybe it's because it's going to be such a maybe smaller role, but it wasn't something that, Kyle Chandler felt that he would be good at. But it's going to be interesting to see him in this role, depending on how big it is in the Lanterns. I know they're looking to cast Jon Stewart, and maybe he's going to be the main Lantern, while Hal is just kind of a small bit part to the side. We don't really know, but it's interesting to see that he popped up for it. I don't know if I really saw him being a comic book character and stuff, so I want to see what kind of performance and look that they have for him.
Yeah, and he's an absolutely fantastic actor. He's been in several things, especially recently, and like him being attached to this. Speaking of Godzilla, he has a Godzilla connection. He was in the recent, Millie Bobby Brown Godzilla films. Like, a fantastic actor. Excited to see him take on this. But yeah, it sort of kind of begins this speculation of what kind of role Hal Jordan is going to play in this series. Like you said, if they are casting an older one, obviously this isn't going to be an origins story for Hal Jordan, but it could potentially be, and that's where a lot of people are seeming to think it's going to go, is this Hal Jordan's already an established Lantern. You're going to get more of the Lantern Corps that, everybody's been waiting to see. We all know the Green Lantern, but there are several different colored Lantern Corps groups that all have different, things, and we'll dive too much into the lore of that, but if you're aware of it, you know what I'm talking about. But could this be a potential him passing the torch on to a Jon Stewart, who could potentially be a younger Lantern that can kind of carry the torch for whatever is going to be their role in the DC universe? I know, like, this is going to be a part of James Gunn's DC universe at this point, so is he built long-term for it? I don't necessarily know, but there's still so much we don't know about the series, but it's a big deal to have their first big casting in this show that seems like it's taking forever to get off the ground, but now that you've got a lead attached to it, let's see how long it takes them to get it really rolling and ready to go. So that's an exciting one to
I want to see if we get a Ryan Reynolds Easter egg somewhere hidden in there. Maybe just him on a magazine cover or something as they're on Earth or something like that. Maybe there's a little
book or a poster or something. Yeah, that would be pretty funny. But yeah, I'm excited that it's Kyle Chandler now. We finally got it locked in. He's like I said, great actor. No issues with that casting, and let's just see what kind of story they're going to give us for it.
Mm-hmm. And moving on, we've talked about AI a lot on here, just about how it's coming into the video game industry, the movie industry, and everything else. And it looks like Andy Serkis is one who's jumping on board with AI, and we don't exactly know how it's going to be handled here, because, I mean, he's one of the guys who have been a big proponent of motion capture and CGI characters, and he's brought all that to the forefront. I mean, Gollum was one that really skyrocketed the the motion capture performance, and of course he was in the Planet of the Apes remake and stuff as Caesar. So I mean, he's a big guy on, even if it's a CG character, he was in suits, acting, doing it. Well, he's got a new project that's going to have AI characters in it. So he mentioned it's going to be, it looks like it may be animated. It says 2D characters using voice actors coming into an AR world where they'll become AI characters authored by artists and directors. So I think that was an important line he got in there, that there's, I guess the AI will be approved, but it is interesting that he's potentially going to be using AI in many ways in a new project.
Yeah, and it seems like you're falling on one side or the other of the fence with this, right? Like, we firmly stand on the side of, like, we don't want to use it to completely replace actors and actresses, but you're seeing people on the other side of it, like, saying, you know, it can be a tool to help enhance things, which we don't necessarily disagree with, but at the same time, you know, with people struggling so hard in the industry to find steady work right now, that we don't want it to completely replace the human element in these stories as well. So it's kind of interesting to see who's, like, coming to the front of the line and kind of signing these deals. Like, we know we just talked about the recently passing James Earl Jones, who lent his voice for artificial intelligence purposes to lend his voice to Darth Vader if they needed to for, you know, Star Wars. But now you're seeing, you know, Andy Serkis, who's a big name in Hollywood, kind of, you know, embracing this a little bit more. There's also, you know, James Cameron, who's a huge director. Obviously, if you've seen any of his, you know, big budget films, he's on the board of an AI company now. Like, that
was the biggest surprise to me, because he's spoken out against AI and everything, and he, of course, has movies that's about AI taking over. I mean,
literally
Skynet. And now he's on the board.
They got him.
He's starting Skynet.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, everybody. They got him.
Yeah, they got
it's
him.
over.
Maybe the bag was big enough. I don't know, but like you're starting to see people's moods towards it change a little bit too. And like I said, it's interesting to see who's either jumping out to get ahead of it, and could be smart business on their part, but a lot of people are digging in their heels the other way too. And it's going to be like this back and forth battle over the next couple years, at least, to see how much it's going to be fully integrated into movies and entertainment and everything like that, versus people that are still holding on and digging into, like, we don't want that much of a part of it. And I think we're going to have to find some kind of happy medium at some point where it's like, okay, we're going to use it for X, Y, and Z, but it's not going to completely replace human elements too. So it's one of those, we keep saying we'll wait and see, but we keep it seems like every other week or every week now, we find some new, you know, detail to this back and forth battle that we, you know, have to talk about. And it's going to be wild to see what the industry is going to look like in a few years, based on I don't want to call it what side wins, but see how we wind up embracing it and using it versus letting it completely take over how we, you know, make and create art.
Yeah, and we've already had a couple actors star in commercials for AI. So, like Salesforce AI, I think it was Matthew McConaughey who did one. And I forget, there's another one, but I can't remember the actor who did it. But that, and Warner Brothers Discovery announced that they're going to use AI for captions and stuff. But yeah, it's, as you said, we don't want it to replace the animators, the actors, the people, the ones who work so hard to bring these films alive. It should be a tool to help assist them, but not a replacement. Because even looking at the animation world, like, are they just going to eventually replace all animators and do everything through AI? Like, there's such a, like, the gaming and entertainment industry is in a very weird place right now. I know the gaming industry is still on strike over AI and everything else, but yeah, we've got studios and actors and directors and more now getting on board with AI companies, and it's, I don't know if they're doing it to, you know, kind of help and make sure they steer it in the right way that AI should be used, or if they just offered enough money and they gave in. Like, we just don't know. Because I said James Cameron was kind of the just oddest one, because like I said, he's big proponent on CGI, on computer graphics and everything else, but he created Skynet. So, I mean, he knows the dangers, but he's backing one.
He knows it, but he's on board, right? So this is the first step, right? This is how Skynet takes over. You've got the guy who warned us about it. Is like, how poetic would that be? Is the guy that warns us about it is the one that causes the whole thing to kind of launch and take over? Like, he laid out his game plan, and look at it now. We're totally kidding about that, or are we?
Let's hope that doesn't.
I hope that's not the case.
It's just crazy when you have the guy who helped create Skynet is on an AI board now.
Yeah, it's like I said, it's going to be really interesting to see how things shake out over the next couple years and how it gets implemented. And, you know, at the end of the day, we still want people to work. We're always going to advocate for that. I know a lot of people in those, especially animation, are really struggling to find, footholds in places because a lot of studios are cutting back. And how much is that due to AI integration already? Like, people are considering moving into other fields of work because they can't, but they're hoping that maybe eventually next year things will be on the upswing again. Like, it's a really rough time for people. And that's something that we're going to continue to champion, at least here, the cause for, is like, put people to work. Like, if you're not going to use them for this, put their skills to use for something to help. You know what I mean? Like, don't completely replace the human element with it, but it's it's not our decision to make, obviously, but we're going to stand behind the people on this one for sure. But
yeah, plus most of the AI that we know, that we see with the images and the words that are being written by it, it's plagiarized. It's taking from the internet. I think it was even LinkedIn was just caught that they push out an update on their app that automatically check that they can use your information in your post for their AI learning base, and you had to turn it off. It was on by default. So we have AI being integrated into so much stuff, but they're not always telling you that they're even using it. Like Reddit announced that they were basically selling off to an AI company, could take everything that's ever been posted on Reddit to train their AI with, and that's how we get Skynet.
Reddit is the worst place to pull from to learn anything
that is
from.
How we get
but
Skynet.
My God, that is probably going to be how it happens, which is very sobering to think about. So the easiest way to transition about a story about AI is to talk about a new RoboCop series that's actually coming on in the works at Prime Video. Prime Video did announce that they are beginning to put together a RoboCop TV series. Obviously, RoboCop had two very, very popular films in the 80s starring Peter Weller that, about this, for lack of a better term, a robotic cop. It's a very minimalistic way of putting it, but so fun to watch and go back and watch now, especially considering how, technology and CGI is advanced, to go back and watch that back at the time, because it was jarring a little bit back in the day, but going back and watch it looks a little silly. But I'm excited for the possibility of this new RoboCop series, though. I think using modern technology, it's got the potential to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm curious to see how it go, because, of course, we got a reboot. I'd say almost 10, 15 years now that we had that RoboCop reboot that did modernize it with a new suit. I didn't hate it. It wasn't the best. It kind of lost a little bit of what the original RoboCop was about the corruption and everything else. But it's going to be interesting to see. You've got James Wan as an executive producer of it, so it's going to be interesting to see exactly how they handle RoboCop as a series. Are we just going to jump straight into them and not give an origin, because we've had so many different versions of RoboCop now, and we had a game just released a year or two ago that did decently well, so people are still kind of thinking about RoboCop. So it's interesting to see that they're going back to that well and going to give us a new RoboCop. I just hope it keeps to that dark and gritty and just it's violent. Like, it was uber violent. So if it kind of sticks to the core of what everyone enjoyed about RoboCop, with the corruption, with the dark, dramatic, violent, over-the-top action, then it should hopefully be fun. But yeah, it should fit pretty well as a series. It just depends on what kind of story they have to tell and just how long they can tell that story.
Sure, and if you're looking for a potential dark, violent type story, it's on the perfect platform on Amazon Prime.
The Boys, RoboCop, basically.
The Boys, you've got, the animated series Invincible that we've talked about as well, but
yeah, they don't shy away.
Yeah, they're not strangers to letting that stuff, fly on that platform. So it could potentially be a good home for it. But like I said, I'm excited because there is potential for it in, modern world. Do they like we've been talking about AI at this point, do they integrate AI into this as well? And it could have some fun back and forth on that, and maybe using, making a stance on AI with the series, talking about, it helping, with corruption and things like that, which is very well could possibly be the case.
Going back
literally
to Terminator.
talking about, like, just these stories of what, these companies are using it for, and like how that could be, done in the wrong hands. So that would be fun. I'm not going to try to write the series for them, but that could be a direction they go. But like I said, I'm looking forward to seeing what they come up with when it shows up there.
Yeah, like the Terminator Zero animated anime series, it dealt with AI, so it brought more AI into it some more. So yeah, it's going to be interesting if they do incorporate, RoboCop. Is he going up against AI? Is RoboCop versus Terminator? Are we going to get something
Right.
along the lines
Sure,
of
yeah.
that? Is he going to have some AI bots and other things to go against? And hopefully it's a fun watch. Like, I think
Yeah,
Prime
for
has
sure.
done pretty well with most shows and adaptations that they've done, but it'll be interesting to see exactly how they go about doing this series.
Yep, looking forward to that, and hopefully we get more information moving forward as to what, who all is going to be attached to it. We don't have a lead yet, I believe, attached to it, so the project has been announced, but no lead attached to it yet. There's some, people already trying to, fantasy cast it as one is wont to do when these types of things get announced, but as we get more information, we'll be sure to share it.
So moving on over to Disney, so they have finally done their crackdown on password sharing. So that's out there right now. It looks like they're doing the IP-based blocking like Netflix does, which I still say I absolutely hate that. And I'm going to use the word hate because I have some of our stuff wired at home and our other devices are wireless. Well, it treats the wired device as it's not in the household. So if they're trying to watch on the Apple TVs and stuff upstairs, and I'm trying to watch on the Xbox or PlayStation down in the living room that's hardwired, I have to shift the household. In my own house, I have to shift the household, which kicks them off. So we can't watch it at the same time in the same house. So what they're doing is not really helping. And well, now Disney Plus is doing, and they are going to charge you more if you want to share, but you can only share with one other household. So it's $7 a month for the like ad supported tier and $10 a month extra for the premium ad free to add another household.
Yeah, and from a business perspective, I get why they don't want you sharing with multiple people. We all admittedly know people or are people. We will neither confirm or deny that just in case Disney's watching. But sharing a log on or creating a profile for other people and sharing, these services, and I get they want to get their money from literally every possible user that they can. They should have their own individual service. So I get why they're cracking down on it. It's just, it sucks to see. And the fact that they're going to charge you more to potentially do that, I'm not the biggest fan of that. But it's even said, it's ridiculous for you in your own house because you have, hardwired devices versus it's still the same network. It's still the same. You're still connecting to the same network. It makes no sense why that is the case for you. And I'm imagining that if it's happening for you, it's happening for a lot of other people that, can't even watch on multiple devices in their own home. And it's really unfortunate because, obviously Netflix is the first one to champion this. Disney's next. And you can imagine other streaming services are eventually going to follow suit as well. And you just wonder what kind of impact it actually has on their business. Does it drive people to be frustrated by that and cancel their subscription completely? Because I know a lot of people got very upset with Netflix about it and canceled their Netflix subscriptions. But did it really help their bottom line at the end of the day? Did more people sign up for it? Did they gain subscriptions by doing it? I don't have access to that information, so I can't speak to it, but what type of impact is it having for when they do stuff like that? Are they actually gaining from it? You got to wonder if they're sticking with it. They might be.
Yeah, and for some other situations, you may have kids in college who are not really making any money, might not be able to work or depending on their sports or whatever they're doing, and the parents try to share with the kids, well, they no longer can, and they have to pay more for that. But also have, with me and my mom, she's on unlimited income, so being able to share, if we shared with her, would help her out a lot because, it can cost you, if you try to get all the streaming platforms now, $100 to $200 to get all of them because they're all $10, $15, $20 now to get them all, and there's 750 of them at this point. So it is hurting people as well. I get they're a business to make money. The streaming side hasn't been as profitable as they thought it was, but it's just I can't watch in my same house if I'm on a wired connection and someone else is on a wireless. And then, like I said, it hurts those with kids that they try to share with to save them some money, or, with parents who are on a limited income. You can add another household, but, what if you have a parent that you're trying to help and a kid off to college or something else? We get there's friends and other people who will share that maybe they're trying to, get to them, but you're hurting those that are not sharing to stick it to Disney or things because it's helping their kid, it's helping their parents. And I don't know, it feels a little nasty to put in the blocking.
It does. It's a little bit of corporate greed, but I get from a business perspective why they do it, right? It's unfortunate. We're gonna feel a certain type of way about it, obviously, but there's no good way of doing it. These companies are gonna try to find a way, right, wrong, or indifferent, to get your hard-earned money out of your pocket, and if you're willing to shell out a couple extra bucks, you can add these services, and it is what it is. There's not a whole lot we could do about it but sit here and complain about it, but it still sucks all around because times are hard for everybody, like everything's expensive anymore. And it's like you said, there's so many different services out there that like, hey man, because I know people that, without naming names, will pay for one service and share with their friend, and then the other person pays on their end for, a different service, and they share and they swap, and, that way they only have to pay for one and watch both, kind of thing. Not naming names, don't come for me. But, like it's going to put a big squash on a lot of that, and then eventually people are going to have to pick and choose, and what's going to happen is the more popular ones are going to make their money and stick around, and then the other ones are going to kind of die off and have to merge into something more expensive. Like you hear about these other services are already talking about combining forces, and you see Hulu and Disney coming together in their own bundled package type deal. You have, NBC and, potentially, there's some still talk about Paramount and Max merging at some point, and Paramount's already merged with Showtime, and like it's just at the end of the day, it feels like there's just going to be like 4 services that's going to encompass everything, but they're all going to be like $40 a month to have, and it's at that point you're just like, well, now I have to pick and choose which ones I want.
We basically have streaming come back to be basically
cable.
Yeah,
it's going to be right back where we started again.
And the price point really isn't that favorable for adding another person to your account, because things like $14 to $15 with taxes for the premium Disney Plus account every month, if you're not doing the Hulu bundle and other stuff like that, which adds, so much more different. But if you're just doing Disney Plus, it's about $14 to $15. And if it's $10, add someone else, like, well, should you save the $4 a month and just share with someone else's account? Because I think that's what they're basically getting to. Like, well, you could pay this amount to add someone to your account, but it's probably better if they just buy their own. I think that's like they're basically forcing everyone not to add that additional account, but go get their own account, so they get that extra $4 out of them a month.
Yeah, which I get, but it's unfortunate, but it looks like the direction we're going, so they can choose how you handle that accordingly, I guess. But it's like I do kind of want to move back into some movie news with Martin Scorsese, legendary director. He's not getting any younger, but he's already in his 80s. Well, we just got news this week that 2 of the projects that he was working on are being indefinitely postponed, which is the Life of Jesus and the Frank Sinatra biopic that he was working on that had, Leonardo DiCaprio and, Jennifer Lawrence attached to it. Those are indefinitely, postponed. You kind of got to wonder, is this going to be it for Martin Scorsese as far as, what all he's going to be able to direct? Like, we don't know how long these are going to be gone. And it sounds kind of morbid to put it that way, but it's reality, right? The man's in his 80s. There's only so many more films and so much time he's going to have to get these things made. But it like I said, it sounds morbid and dramatic, but that's not an insignificant piece of news.
Yeah, and these were originally planned to film back to back. I don't know if that's because of his age or anything else that they were going to film them back to back. Like the rumblings, the Frank Sinatra one might be completely dead. The Life of Jesus one might still happen and have some life. We don't know if maybe the Sinatra estate stepped in and didn't want him to do it.
Could be.
Don't really know, because there was some touchy stuff with his history that maybe they didn't want them to touch on and everything. There really wasn't a reason given why they were indefinitely postponed, but yeah, it's going to be curious to see if he goes back to either of these because of his age. Maybe he has something else he's going to do instead of them, and these just fall to the wayside, or we just don't know how many more movies he has in him because of his age. He's not in the best overall health just because he's in his 80s. I mean, he's an older gentleman now, so we'll see what we have left out of Scorsese, because his films are not small, little bitty films that are watchable in an hour. I mean, these are 2 to 3 4-hour epics that take a very long time to film and do, and like it takes a lot of commitment to do his films.
Yeah, and it's he is the magnum opus king when it comes to filmmaking. Like you said, his films are notorious for being long, well-made movies. He's a legendary director for a reason, right? So many incredible films, but when you're up against the the hourglass here, like when you start hearing about these things being postponed, you wonder if they're ever going to see the light of day with his, brilliant creative mind behind them. And it's unfortunate. Like, obviously, every director seems to have their one main actor that they put in all their movies, and that's DiCaprio for Scorsese. They've had such a wonderful working relationship over the years, and I'm a little bit bummed to hear about the postponement of the Frank Sinatra biopic, because he is such a fascinating character even to this day. Like the stories you could tell about them are legendary. So it was exciting to see him, kind of get behind that and do something a little out of norm for him. But I think he would have done really great things with it. And you kind of wonder what actually put the stumbling blocks onto that for him. But hopefully he gets at least The Life of Jesus made, if that's going to be the case for him. Like you said, there's a chance that it still could be made, or he might wind up pivoting to work on something else, like you said. But it's kind of a bummer when you hear something like that for such a legend like that gets put on ice and you don't know like where they're going to pivot from there.
As we're still waiting on Tarantino's final film, he canceled his movie critic movie that he was going to make because he felt like there was something different and better that he wanted to do, and we haven't heard any more from him either. I mean, he's a bit younger than Scorsese, but he's still, I think he's in his 60s now, so I mean, he's not that much younger, but he's younger. But yeah, we got two kind of legendary directors that we really don't know what's next out of them.
Yeah, and we'll keep everybody updated on what he winds up pivoting to, or if that winds up getting made. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what's next for Scorsese for sure.
Moving on to our last story of the day about Pixar. So Pixar announced a delay, but also kind of a move up of one of their series. So we have their first long-form series, Win or Lose, which is about a baseball team looking for redemption, which I've been looking forward to as a baseball fan and everything, to see what Pixar does with sports and does with baseball in general. That has been delayed until February, so that was supposed to come out this year. We're not seeing it now, but another one it might have been because of the popularity of Inside Out 2, they had a spinoff series called Dream Productions that takes place in Riley's mind still. That's all about her dreams. So it's a production studio that creates all of her dreams. It's going to be a 4-episode limited series, and we were expecting that in 2025. Well, now we're getting that in December.
Yeah, and that's exciting. I think a lot of it is to do with capitalizing on the popularity of Inside Out 2. Incredible run at the box office, exceeded everybody's expectations. One of the highest grossing, if not the highest grossing, probably top 3 or 4 highest grossing animated movies of all time, I think is where
Inside Out 2 is now the top grossing.
Is it? Yeah. So
it passed the live action Lion King to be the top grossing.
That's right. I remember we talked about that. Yeah. That's crazy, but what an incredible run it had. So smart on them, but good on them for, it feels like they may be swapping places as to when they're coming out. So excited to get that in the same calendar year. That's going to be a fun 4-episode series to see how that works. That's definitely one that I know, I'm looking forward to. I know you're looking forward to watching it with your kids as well, but that's exciting. That's moving up and coming out by the end of the year. So we're definitely excited to check that one out.
And I do want to toss in here with us talking about Pixar, because there's some more news that came out from the layoffs and everything, that people who did work on Inside Out 2 didn't end up getting any of their bonuses and stuff, and the film is doing so well. We loved it so much. I hope Disney and Pixar ends up doing the right thing by these people who were laid off before the film came out, that they do right by them and give them a little extra help or something. Absolutely. Because they worked hard to put out an extremely good movie, and they lost their jobs before they even got to see. So it's kind of a bittersweet. The movie's doing so well, but they're no longer part of it.
It's the ugly side of corporate business, right? I could do a corporate business podcast just talking about all of the things and stuff like that, but I don't want to get too much on my soapbox. At least sticking to the content of it, at least excited to see what they come out with. But, we obviously, if you can't tell, feel a very specific type of way about the people that go into making these things and how much better they should be treated, and have more job security than unfortunately what they're currently having. So I don't want to get into too much of a rant on that, but definitely do right by those people and take care of the people that put in the work to make that as successful as it was. So hopefully that gets rectified for them for sure.
Yeah, I want to make sure I touch on that just because we feel for the people, like creatives. He does music. I do graphic design, a whole lot of other stuff too. Like, we feel for the creatives who put something out, but they get no credit, or they're losing their jobs and losing stuff because of it. And like I said, I hope Disney does right by those employees that created something really good.
Absolutely, do better. And then, hopefully, like we said, it comes back in the upswing again. People get back to work doing the things they love and getting compensated fairly to do so. We're big proponents of that and always will be. And I think that's a good place to leave that conversation before I go on too much more of a rant. But now we want to move into our TV breakdown of the week. So now we're going to jump into Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power. We've been on we had our, our favorite films episode last week that kind of took place in lieu of doing episode 6. So we're going to review episodes 6 and 7 together. So we're coming up now on the finale of this season. It's creeped up on us very quickly. So 2 episodes here that we're going to talk about and kind of merge the stories into one review. I don't think we're going to break it down completely episode by episode. We can if you want to, but we're coming up now. It's the way we ended episode 7, at least. We kind of get to the end and work our way back a little bit, but we're at this culmination that we were expecting to get to by the end of the season, where there's this showdown and, a big battle is breaking out and we're kind of seeing how the dominoes fall, but how do we get there?
Yes, I've only got a few notes, about these 2 episodes, because the episode 6 came out while you were out of town enjoying your time out and on the West Coast and having some fun. But episode 5 kind of left us with Galadriel being captured by Adar, and he brings up that we're actually allies, and we get a little bit deeper talk on that of exactly what that means. Are orcs going to be a friend to elves and the rest of Middle Earth, or do they have just want to destroy Sauron no matter what happens? Which, going into episode 7, we get kind of what he's going to do with that. But we do have Celebrimbor is dealing with some issues and problems getting the rings made. They run out of mithril, and they're struggling to get the rings made right. And we still got Sauron's control and everything of them. It's still in this episode, and kind of having the knowledge of 7, we see exactly why he's been that way. But it's like Celebrimbor has been such a wishy-washy, I don't know wishy-washy, but he's been odd because he's not acting like an elf should. They're very highly intelligent and very proper and standing on this, but he's been doing stuff so out of character and so out of this. But like I said, in episode 7, we do get the more reasoning of what that's happening, showing the control and the deception and everything that Sauron has.
Yeah, you start to see the way his influence starts to really take hold of Celebrimbor, and you see this kind of slow descent into that control, and it gets stronger and stronger until eventually it, by the time we get to episode 7, it really manifests itself, and you see just how deep in the weeds he is with this. But you see Sauron just driving this point home, right? We got to get these rings made. These have to get done no matter what it takes. Basically to the point where he tells him to lock himself in his tower and I'll handle your day-to-day affairs while you get these done. These have to get done. And it really manifests itself in a really interesting way by the episode 7, where he's basically lost in this reality of everything's fine out here. Just go do what you do, when it's very much not the case, right? So in his eyes, everything's good, we're good, I'm going to focus on this, I'm still struggling with why I'm making these rings, but, everything's okay, I can still focus on it. Well, come to find out, his tower in his city is under attack in this big battle, and Sauron's trying to shield him away from it as much as he can so he can focus on getting these finished, have the last little bit of control that he wants to have. And it's really taken an interesting turn with these guys, especially with Sauron. Eventually, spoiler alert, he gets found out, people discover that this is who this person is, and it's leading to this really fun, epic, battle for Middle Earth at this point. It's this big battle that you're seeing kind of play out in a way similar to what they describe in the movies. And if we're really getting that information filled in of how we got to that point. And I think they're, for as much grief as they've gotten, in a lot of ways justifiably so, leading up to this season, I think they're doing a really good job of pushing it more towards, what we already know, and getting to those points and really doing things in a way that makes logical storytelling sense and is told in a really well done way that it's really coming into its own, especially in these last 3 or 4 episodes. I feel like they're really we were worried that they were all out here, and how are we going to get, and I really think they're doing a really good job of getting us to that point, and it's credit to the writers on the show, but I'm really digging how we get here.
Yeah, because with episode 7, the city has become under attack. They're
Yeah.
being hit with barrages. They're trying to find a way to, it's surrounded by water, and the orcs are trying to find their way in and everything. And it probably had one of my favorite sequences that I've seen in this show, as you talked about, is that we kind of learn that Celebrimbor has been a prisoner of his own mind, that Sauron has put this kind of spell over him, that he thinks everything is hunky-dory and everything's good. So the city's being attacked, but, he allows him to open up the door, and he just sees children playing, and everything's bright and colorful. And my favorite scene was that, he goes back inside, and you have Sauron outside, and it's light and bright and colorful behind him. And then you just get a slow pan of the camera turning around, and it turns to night and the attack. And they apparently did that practically. Yeah. I saw a behind the scenes clip as they did that turn, really, and it was kind of wild to see it go from light to night in just a few seconds. Like, it was a really cool looking scene, like from just a technical geeking out
absolutely
aspect. It was just so neat that they did that practically.
I love that, and I love that little attention to detail that they do, and it helps to accentuate the story that they're telling, right? And it's a lot of fun that that they incorporated that in there, and it's fun for us to kind of nerd out a little bit, and like little things that we like to pay attention to when they're making movies, like their films and TV and stuff like that. But really cool to see them incorporate that into the show in a way that practically makes sense. But yeah, you get to see how these rings are starting to corrupt everybody. So it's not only corrupting the elves that are making them or the elves that are using them, it's also corrupting the dwarves. So we get a larger dive into what's going on with King Durin and his, the struggle between him and his son, who wants to save the dwarves and, not lead them to impending doom because of greed and things like that. But you see kind of just how far gone the king has become to, just his sole purpose is to get as much money and accumulate as much wealth, and the absolute power and greed that is corrupted his mind at this point. And you see what the ring's doing for him, and you get that progression of that relationship, and you get a little bit of payoff for the dwarves in this too, because, you see the greed, you see it, and you see Durin struggling so hard with, standing up to his dad to do what's right for the people. Like, he cares very much about his father, but I think he has to come to that realization that his father may be too far gone and too far corrupted for this. He's going to have to make a very hard decision to, essentially save his people and step up and be the leader that he needs to be as the prince if the king is corrupted as much as he is. And there's a fun dynamic, and he does a good job. The actor that plays Prince Durin does such a good job of showing that emotion, because dwarves are, more known to be more stoic and a little less emotional than, outside of just anger. They're not the most emotionally complex, characters in these stories, but he does that really good job of that struggle of, like, I love my father so much that I can't, go against his word, and I respect and honor my father as not only my father, but the king, with doing what's right for his people and making that hard decision. And it was that was my personal favorite part of all of this, was that emotional struggle that he did show while also trying to, make the decision, come to grips with it. And it led to a really nice payoff for him as a character in this show. But the dwarves are in a little bit of a pickle themselves with, where they wind up by the end of episode 7.
Yes, with episode 6, we did get Prince Durin standing up to his father, trying to show him that he's got this corruption, that it's the ring doing it to him. He's asked him to take off. He ends up getting, like, tossed back from his father, to where they decide, you know what, we're going to stand up to him, and we're going to block the dwarves from being able to go dig, which was also another silly. I know the dwarves are a little sillier, but you've got his wife standing in the way of all the dwarves come to mind, so she just starts singing, which ends up calling bats down. That drives them away, but it was kind of that silly moment that I'm going to stop you with song.
A little bit of lighthearted fantasy element to it, but it
started getting into the emotional after that. As Prince Durin joins with him, and as we go into episode 7, we have the rest of the men, who's given orders from the king that they need to get to mining, because we find out that Elrond has shown up to the dwarves and he's asking for help, and he's talking to Prince Durin, and they're telling that the city is under siege. We need the dwarves to help fight. So Prince Durin is gathering all of the dwarves to go fight, but then we've come to find out that the king has really gone off the deep end at this point. He is killing his own kind to get out of his way so he can go down and mine, but his mining is going to cause the Balrog to come. So Prince Durin is stuck with, do I leave the dwarves here to battle and fight what the king may unleash, or do I go and help Elrond and the elves? And it just created this kind of, as with the lore and where everything happens with the mines of Durin and everything, it creates that just rock in a hard place. Like, he wants to help both, but he can't win.
Yeah. And it's, like I said, that's the fun part of it, because where they wind up, right? You know what happens. So just him dealing with that emotional weight and, not only wanting to help his friend Elrond, as we've seen, if you've watched the show up to this point, they're close friends, and they just do such a good job that you see kind of the choice that he winds up making, at least initially, what it seems like he's making, because we don't get a definitive conclusion just yet, but I'm wondering if in episode 8 that's going to pay off in a different way, and seeing how that, kind of works itself out. But now, without spoiling too much of the episode, but because we still want you guys to go watch and check it out. But
we're deep in the series now.
Yeah, we're really deep. We're going to spoil some of it, but not everything. But yeah, there's this, and it really leaves us in a good spot to see how they wind up at the end of this season and see what that looks like for them going forward. But it was a really cool moment when, he kind of stands up to his dad and, rallies the dwarves behind him. It was a really cool moment.
And we also got some time with the Land of Men when episode 6.
Absolutely.
So we got Farazan is got the captain before him and is basically sentencing him to death, but he gives him an option. You will not be sentenced to death if you say what you did wrong and you pledge allegiance to him. Well, the captain does say that he was wrong in some stuff that he did, but refuses to bow down to Farazan as the king and everything. So he's sentenced through their ways is basically they toss him in the ocean and see if this great sea creature devours him or spits him back out. Like, that's kind of part of their history, is that they allow this sea creature to be the one that decides if they're good or not. But it also came with a twist in the end, which, again, this was kind of more sillier, but I know it's high fantasy and craziness and stuff with it. But, that they're down in this hole that's separated from the ocean, but I guess a sea creature can make its way up to it. And before the captain can be tossed in, the queen shows up and offers herself up as the one to be sacrificed to this creature.
Yeah, and that's been kind of the crux of Farazan trying to lay claim to, be the king and the ruler of the kingdom, is he feels he's the one that was deemed worthy of leading the group. And, he's more than willing to let the queen sacrifice herself to this trial, because
Go ahead.
If she dies, it proves his point, right? It just further cements it. But doesn't quite go the way Farazan seemed, because she jumps into the water and she is spat back out. And now he has no claim, right? So
yeah, the crowd, the people are cheering for the queen again. They're cheering for her.
They're like, well, she proved it. Like, sorry, guy, go kick rocks. Like, it was a really powerful moment, because, before they jumped into it, there was a really touching scene in the jail cell where, the captain's daughter, who is very much on Farazan's side, but still loves her father, like, begs him practically to, change his mind. Just, she doesn't want him to die. Just do the smart thing, in her opinion, and side with Farazan and live. Like, you're so entrenched in your faith that you're not willing to swallow your pride to stay alive. And he, very poetically is like, what is faith if it's not walked and lived, which is a very honorable thing to do and say. And he walks the walk and talks the talk, right? So she stands up. She's like, he said you'd say that. And he brings the queen in. The queen tries to convince him of the same thing before she winds up jumping in, and she's like, hey, like, I appreciate this. Like, don't sacrifice yourself for me. Like, you've lived honorably. You've done all these things. And he kind of digs his heels in very stubbornly and stands his ground like, no, this is what I believe. I believe in you as the rightful ruler of this kingdom, the rightful heir, and I'm willing to die. If that means that I die and I'm not worthy, then so be it. And he's willing to do so, and kind of comes to peace with it. And it leads up to that wonderful moment that you're talking about where she does, stand in for herself, and he's very much protesting it, like, no, don't do this. I've come to grips with this. I'm good with this. And, it winds up playing out the way it does. And that was a really cool moment there. But yeah, it's, the world of men's getting very interesting too. And now that you're starting to see the rings get closer to being finished, how that's going to play into everything that goes on there, because Farazan, in kind of a fit of rage, goes back to this orb that's kind of giving him visions of seeing things to come. He sees some very harrowing things in this vision that's kind of messes with his mind a little bit, that he sees some of the horrors that are going to come, which, if you know the story, you know where it's going. But it's going to be an interesting time for the world of men moving forward, for sure.
I gotta say, the captain's daughter, I despise her just about as much as I hate Farazan's right-hand man, because she seems to be fighting that good and evil, that angel and the devil on her shoulders, but she's giving into the devil every time. So, because it seemed like they were having a touching, nice moment, then like, he said you would say that. Yeah. So she just went right back to, you were manipulating him. And doing that way, like, okay, you two got to get your comeuppance coming soon and everything. But it's going to be very interesting moving forward to seeing if Farazan gets a ring and how, maybe he's corrupted more if he's still in power. Exactly what's happening with his character. She said he's using the orb now as what he used to get the queen out. You're using the orb. Well, he's using it now too, so he's very easily corruptible. So that's going to be interesting to play out if he does end up getting his hand on a ring, or exactly what happens with his character and how Man moves forward, because we know Man does play a big part in defeating Sauron. But how do we get to that point? Because we've mostly seen corruption. We've mostly seen the bad parts. We haven't seen a lot of the good out of the people, other than a few characters, but we haven't got a whole lot of good with Man yet. And we also got a little bit in episode 6 of the Hobbits and with the Stranger. So the Stranger is told by Tom that, he's got one more trial basically left to do. And this is you do or die, basically. Like, if you turn away from it, you can never come back to it again. But he's also given an ultimatum that he has to choose between, is he going to go try to save Poppy and them, or is he going to go after Sauron and fulfill his destiny, basically, and save everybody? And like, he's stuck at this crossroads that he has to decide which way he goes, and there's no coming back from it. Whichever way he goes, that's his direction. That's where he's going. There's nothing else past that.
Yeah, it's honestly, I think, though, it's compelling enough to keep me interested, but this was kind of, I think, the weaker point of the season for me. And it's just like, you put so much emphasis on these, people as friends and kind of them helping, the Stranger get to where he needs to go. But you broke them up, and then are we not going to get them reuniting at this point? Is he going to choose? Because you got to figure he's going to embrace his destiny, at least we think, right? Mm-hmm. And, join this battle, but you don't know. Like, what kind of price does he have to pay if he makes the other decision?
They're keeping the mystery going almost too long.
That's what
it's
I'm
been
saying.
2 seasons of mystery of who he is and what his part is.
Yeah, I think we need to get the ball rolling on that a little bit, because as good as they are moving everything else forward, this is where I feel like it's kind of lacking for me a little bit in development. You get some nice heartfelt conversations with the hobbits and the things that they're going through, and a little bit is touched on that, but still not all that much. Mm-hmm. Like, they're kind of starting to fall behind everything else in the story. Like, it's feeling like it's being kind of pigeonholed into like this side quest that can almost be explored by its own and on its own, and like starting to not necessarily fit with everything else yet. And it's a little unfortunate, because we know how important, obviously, in Lord of the Rings, how important the hobbits are to this. Mm-hmm. And they kind of feel like they're being kind of swept under the rug a little bit. And maybe it's because they were so heavily featured in the films that they're kind of on purpose taking a little bit of a backseat to kind of explore these other areas. But you kind of felt like they were going to play a bigger role in this overall story, and it doesn't really feel like we're getting there with him necessarily.
Yeah, I agree. And like with Nori and Poppy and everything, like there was a nice moment where they're kind of talking about their different tribes of hobbits and stuff. And, Nori's like, we move like every 8 months. Like we're always on the move. We're changing the lands. Because we already had the discussion where there was a legendary hobbit who would find the land where all hobbits would live and everything else. Because it's kind of setting up the creation of the Shire and everything else. Because, the leader of this other group of hobbits, like, I've been here since I was a baby. Like, this has been my home since I was a child. I buried my husband here and my parents and everyone else. Like I've been in one place my entire life, and it kind of gave her a different perspective. And then we kind of got a little bit of a romance with Poppy, which was like kind of weird and interesting. But it's like, as you said, like what exactly is their story left? Is we just going to have them off on their own? It's about the, eventually by the end of the series, because we apparently have 3 seasons left of this show. Is their story just going to become about them finding the Shire and finding Hobbiton and setting up where they're going to live from now on? Like, are they just going to be completely separated from this stranger that we don't know if he's a blue wizard, or if he is Gandalf, or if he's Sauron, or if he's some other character that we haven't been introduced yet? But like, they have taken kind of a backseat. Like it's been definitely heavier on, which makes sense because it's the Rings of Power, about the rings and Sauron and the elves and the orcs, but their story is definitely not as fleshed out and progressing as everything else is.
Yeah, and maybe they have bigger roles to play in future seasons, but like I said, it doesn't give me a lot of confidence to see where they're going to take their story, because like you said, between the two, you have the one that's always on the move and the one that never moves, and you're kind of figuring out, do they agree to meet in the middle and find the Shire, which that's where they wind up, but it feels like the very, very bare bones basic beginnings of finding this, and I wish they'd give them a little bit more, but that's just my own taste for it, right? It's not that I necessarily don't like it as much, but it just feels like it's becoming kind of an afterthought with the rest of everything going on. But like you said, this is focusing more on the rings themselves. It's the Rings of Power, obviously, so it's going to focus heavier on that, but they kind of, I think, maybe felt like they could pull back on them to kind of give them a little bit more later on. I don't know. It's hard when we're doing a week-to-week speculation on, the story that we're seeing, and we're just doing it based on the information that we're being given, right? So our brains naturally tend to gravitate towards what we already know versus what we don't know and we think they're going to do. But, like I said, I think they've done a very good job this season of getting back to more hyper-focused and pushing the narrative forward, and they're doing a really good job of that for 90% of the show. So it's just a little 10% of it that I wish they could move a little bit further along at a little bit of a faster pace, but maybe that's intentional. We'll see.
Yeah, and as we know, they're not fully following what Tolkien had written about the past and the history, that they don't have full rights to everything, so they're changing stuff and kind of adapting to be its own, which some people can't get past. I'm able to get past and enjoy for what it's giving. It has problems and issues. Like there's some bad dialogue at times and some bad acting and story points and stuff, but I'm enjoying overall because it's a very pretty series to look at. Like they're not skimping on the money when it comes to the sets and the action. And like episode 7, we don't get the hobbits or anything anymore. It's all about that war in the city that, where the rings have been made, that the orcs have started their fight and their battle. And we get a lot of action in episode 7. We see a lot of fighting. We see a lot of battle. Then we finally see Elrond show up with the elves. So you've got the High King, you've got Elrond with the elves again, and they're marching up to attack. But they see Galadriel in the cage, and so they end up having a meeting with Adar to kind of find out, are we going to battle? Are we going to fight now? And, Adar basically spells out everything like, just you give me the ring, I'll give you Galadriel, but we're still going to attack the city. Like, there's nothing basically you can do that'll keep us from attacking the city because Sauron's in there, and we want to defeat him. And Elrond ends up telling him no. Like I said, you can take the ring when we meet on the battlefield and stuff. And then probably one scene that's gonna be a little controversial if you didn't really fully pay attention to what was happening is that Elrond goes up to say his goodbyes to Galadriel because he didn't offer to the ring for her life, and he kisses her. Which, if you know the story of Elrond Elrond marries Galadriel's daughter to have his family and stuff. So it's a little weird that he's kissing her, but it was because he was slipping her something to be able to pick the lock on the shackles and everything to get out. So it was a distraction. But again, it's that weird one that I know those who are having problems with how they're changing stuff in Lord of the Rings are not even going to look at the context that he slipped her something to pick the lock. That why is he kissing the mom of his wife?
Yeah, and
eventual wife.
Yeah, one of the things I like to do is after I try not to read anything about like a show before I watch it or a movie. I don't read reviews before I go see things. I don't see what people are talking about it. I like to go into things with an open mind. But what I do like to do is after I've seen it, do go and look and see what people are saying to see if people are having similar reactions to it to what I did. And I literally typed in Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power, Season 2, Episode 7 into Google, and the first thing I saw when it came up with is, how dare they with him. It was like, let's talk about that weird kiss, was literally the name of the title that I saw when I looked it up, and I'm like, yep, that's exactly the reaction I was expecting from some people, which, in a vacuum, yes, like you said, Elrond does wind up marrying Galadriel's daughter, but it's for a, it's for a good reason to help her escape, that kind of thing. It's going to be a weird dynamic, like that people can't separate everything down to the letter, but at the end of the day, I understand that it is an adaptation of an established work. It's an interpretation. People are going to take some creative liberties to change things.
It's just like The Hobbit had romance between an elf and a dwarf and other stuff that they added that a lot of people frowned on, but it was added into it.
Yeah, and it still worked within the story. So let's put that judgment a little bit aside. Turn that part of your brain off if you can. But it's a really good episode in the sense that if you're waiting for this battle and this violence and this action, it's got suspense, it's got drama, you get everything you want in this episode. Like, I was wondering if this was going to be episode 8, but we're getting the crux of it in episode 7. But you do kind of see that one thing Adar is like too subtle. Like, he's very direct with what he wants. Doesn't really hide a whole lot, so you've kind of known this was his game plan all along, is my sole purpose to save the Uruks is to stop Sauron. Like, they tried to do it before, they were unsuccessful in completely destroying him, but I think he's coming to the realization, in his mind, the one thing he needs to destroy Sauron is the ring, is a ring to kind of help finish him once and for all. So you kind of get why he's so hyper focused on that ring, but his sole purpose to save his people. Because in part of that back and forth with Galadriel, he brings up a very good point. Like, if I work with you to defeat Sauron, are you going to let our people go back and live in peace, or are you going to come after us anyway because of who we are, that kind of thing? And you kind of see his point in that in some ways. Like, he's painted as this, the orcs are what they become in the show, but in this point, you're like, I kind of get where he's coming from, because he's like, I need to he's the one very real threat to my people's survival at this point, and I'm going to do what I need to do to stop that guy so we can, go live in peace. But that's where the dynamic is between, orcs and men. Like, we exist, what we are, what we do, we're different. Will you leave us in peace if we defeat this? Like, can I work with you to defeat him? If we do, are you coming after me next, kind of thing? And he makes a good point. Like, I know he's kind of painted to be the bad guy, but he does make a good point there.
But you also get to see some turning start to happen here with the orcs and how they look at him. Yeah. Like, even though he's doing what he feels best to try to save them as a whole, he's sacrificing their lives. And he basically tells them that I would rather see you all die than see you be henchmen and work for Sauron. Like, he basically tells them that, and you're seeing, we'll see how it plays out in the finale and going forward here, but we start seeing the orcs looking at him a little differently, and see exactly how that's going to go forward. But I want to touch on, as we've already touched on a little bit with Celebrimbor, as in episode 7, we kind of get his redemption finally. Like, he's felt like kind of I haven't really liked his character because of how easy he's manipulated, but we get to see just how hard the hooks of Sauron was in him, because he even calls him out and calls him the great deceiver, that you're even deceiving yourself because you're deceiving everything, because Sauron's always turning everything that it was Celebrimbor's fault. You did this, you wanted it, you did it. Because we even got him, Sauron monologuing about Morgoth and everything, and how he went to battle with a god, and how they had a battle of wills because Morgoth wanted to destroy Middle Earth while Sauron wants to control it, and how he did there, which is very similar to what he's done to Celebrimbor. And Celebrimbor calls him out on that, and he's like, "No, you did this to yourself." He's like, "You're even deceiving yourself." But we just finally got to see the hooks and how bad, and because it played out in kind of a slow way. We already talked about how he's had visions that everything was hunky-dory while the city was actually burning around him, and he sees a mouse, and this mouse is kind of the start of turning everything, because the mouse moves in a very specific way, and he notices that, and then he sees it do the exact same movement over and over again. And while he's working on the rings, which Sauron had gone to the dwarves to get more mithril, but they said no, and he came back with what looked like a container full of mithril. Like, is this enough to finish the rings? And he's still working on finishing the 9 rings for men. But while he's doing that, he gets a glimpse of himself in the mirror, and he's bloody and he's dirty, and it's like it's really starting to more and more like a gem is missing from his hammer, and it's just starting to unravel, and he's figuring it out. And then when he finally comes out of this prison he's been in, he sees his forge is nearly destroyed, and how just ragged and everything he looks. But you get Celebrimbor is finally, he's out of the spell, he's walking out to the other elves, and he's telling them, I've been a prisoner in my own mind, and Anatar that we thought was here to help us, he is Sauron, he is evil lord, but they don't believe him. And we've got them standing on the wall, and with Miradania, who is kind of been the second in command and helping him and stuff, because they thought that he had abandoned them, that he was still inside the forge and only cared about the rings. He didn't care what was happening to the town, and Anatar was their savior, and he was the one putting up the defenses and trying to help him. And Celebrimbor's trying to tell him, no, that's not true. And then Sauron does something like I just did not expect to happen.
Yeah, he winds up getting Miradania thrown over the wall and just very brutally just like killed by an orc. And it was a very harrowing moment, and it's just like, do you finally believe me now? Like, what the...
Yeah, but he staged it in a way that it looked like Celebrimbor tossed her, so now they still don't trust Celebrimbor.
Yeah, and it's just, it's insane. Everything's going crazy. You come to find out that, that Mithril is really Sauron's,
dark black
his
blood.
Dark blood that's, like, being infused in these rings, which you see how... they become, so influential over, all the people that are carrying them. And it's just, it's leading to this grand epic conclusion in this episode where, you got the elves involved now. You've got, the Uruks trying to fight too. You've got the elves in the city defending themselves from the attack too. And it's going to be really interesting to see where they move into this last episode and how everything shakes out, because you get another I don't want to minimize it, but you get another unfortunate character who's played kind of a big role in this season, like meeting what appears to be their demise. We don't get full confirmation officially of it, but you get another main character that, looks like they meet their end in this episode, but they're not scared to, pull that trigger when they need to in a show like this. But it's exciting to see where they're going to come out of this in the season finale next week. And we're just right in the middle of everything here with this big battle to save the city, to get their hands on Sauron, and what that turn's going to look like. And obviously we know how it all winds up eventually, but it's fun to see the journey they're taking us on, for sure.
Yeah, because at the end here we get another hint of what the power of the rings are, because Sauron's forcing Celebrimbor to finish the rings, and he tosses them in the forge and pulls them out, but they're cool to the touch. He thought he was, it really looked like he was trying to destroy them, throwing them into the fire and throwing them into the forge, but it didn't work. And it's like, oh, they're cool, put them in a bag. But we get at the end here now, well, Galadriel is given the 9 rings by Celebrimbor after he did something, again, I wasn't expecting, like giving away a lot of stuff, because, again, we're deep into this. We're right before the finale next week and stuff, but I wasn't expecting the kind of sacrifice that he put himself through, and cutting off something to be able to get out, and standing back up to Sauron after that. We don't exactly know what's going to happen with him now going into the finale. We don't know where Galadriel is going, and we're left with Elrond and the High King and everything. Like, waiting to see exactly what happens with the elves, because they look up again from the two towers. We see the light coming over the mountain and stuff, and we think the dwarves are coming, but no one comes, and they're left defenseless. Basically, the last line of elves fight their best right there at the end, and we're left with a lot of mystery going into the final episode. Of course, we know with some characters where they end up, and they're not going to meet their demise and stuff, but it's very interesting to see what exactly episode 8, the finale, is going to be, because we haven't seen like the One Ring be forged yet, and we do have 3 seasons left, so it's interesting to see where we're at right now in season 2 and what there is going to be left to explore throughout here, because a lot of it's going to be about Sauron's rise to power and everything after all this manipulation, everything else goes. But it's going to be interesting how we go from where we are now to where we know it ends up at the beginning of the Fellowship of the Ring, learning of how he was defeated and everything else. Like, there's a lot to still be told, but is it 3 seasons amount to be told?
It may want to being edited down like beyond that, but we'll see. Like, they've done a good job this season. I'm excited to see how it ends up, and we're gonna have a lot to talk about next week for sure when we get to that final episode. That I'm excited to see where they leave it, because there's still a decent amount of story that they could be told. But is it gonna last 3 more seasons? I don't know, but hopefully they get to tell this story to its conclusion. But there's a lot of things to wrap up, at least in the end of this season, for what we think is coming, but time will tell. I'm excited to see where episode 8 winds up.
And so the first 7 episodes of Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power Season 2 is available on Prime Video now. The season finale is next week. So we're going to see after episode 8 where we're left at the end of the season and where we're going in season 3.
Yep, I'm excited to check that out and ready to see what they have coming up for us next.
Now, for our film and review this week, we are reviewing The Wild Robot. So this is a DreamWorks animation picture that is just gorgeous to look at. Like, from the trailers and everything, it looks like a story. It's based off of a book. It's about these AI robots that, was it a ship crashed near an island, and so Roz is the only one that woke up about it. She finds some of the others and stuff, but she's looking for a program. Her programming is, well, she's here to serve somebody, so she's going to all the different animals and trying to figure out, all right, what am I going to serve? Who am I here? And she tries to, send out an SOS beacon to go home, but of course everything goes wrong when she's trying to do it. But this is a beautiful animated film, from story, from acting, the music, the lighting, the colors. Like, this almost perfection to me in animation, because the color palettes they used mixed with just the softest lighting and the way they did stuff. Like, there's like true artistry in the animation of this film. Like, it was just so beautiful and stunning to look at. Its own kind of unique style that's almost hand-drawn but 3D as well, and it was just beautiful to look at. The songs and the music fit well. Like, it to me is one of the best animated films of the year. It's between this and Inside Out 2 for me on which one's going to win the best animated Oscar.
Yeah, this movie was absolutely fantastic. I was in love with everything visually. The voice cast was phenomenal. The story's great. It's such a beautiful work of art. Mm-hmm. And like you said, everything you said is absolutely spot on. The story's great. So like you said, this bot whose prime directive is to complete tasks, right? That's what the bot is purposed to do. And it comes across, it eventually finds its way and comes across this bear. The bear kind of chases her. I'm gonna call it her, but because it's voiced by the fantastic Lupita Nyong'o.
Yeah, she was great,
amazing in this role and amazing in everything she does. And the bear chases her, and she winds up falling off the side of a cliff onto a ledge, and it winds up like damaging this nest, save for one little baby gosling egg, who winds up hatching and imprinting on Roz the robot, and that's kind of where we take off from there. But the writing on it is so brilliant. The story's amazing, and like it's their directive to get this gosling, up to speed to where, it can fly, it can swim, it's taken care of for food. And there's this really emotional like story being told of, these two bonding despite it being a robot and learning, adapting and learning how to love and care for something. And it's a really beautiful story, but it's got a good mix of, as most DreamWorks and animated features do, they do a good job of balancing dramatic, storytelling with humor and lightheartedness. And in my showing in particular, it got quite a few audible laughs from parents, which I think is a hallmark of a really good animated feature where the kids are invested in it, but the parents are still getting enjoyment out of it and laughing, and the jokes are hitting with some of the parents. There's a couple
it goes more dark and morbid than I was expecting.
Yeah, for the parents, and I'm like, ooh, kids might not pick up on that, but we're like,
me and my wife looked at each other and we're like, wow, that went dark.
But it's still so well done. The fox is the other main character. I forget what the name of the character the fox was, but it was voiced by the fantastic Pedro Pascal, who we talk about as literally in everything. But it was so good, so well done. This coming of age bonding between this robot and the Gosling is, she winds up calling him, what was it?
Bright Bill.
Bright Bill was his name that they wound up using, and getting him ready to migrate, and the duckling, the Gosling, being the run of the litter, not really being accepted by everybody else because he's being raised by this robot who everybody in the forest is scared of. They call her the monster and all this stuff. And it's a really good story of, I'm trying not to spoil the entire plot, but bringing everyone together and a communal type thing to survive, that type of thing. It's really, really well done. And it's told in such a smart way that we hadn't really seen too much before, but it's brilliant, brilliant film.
Especially with our main character being kind of a robot with its own thought process, basically AI.
Yeah.
And this robot, Lupita gives us such a layered performance because it's an AI or a robot that begins overriding his program because it's learning from the animals. It's learning all this other stuff, and she's changing, and it's almost humanizing the robot, and you get so many different layers to a robot that was just amazing. And even the animals, change, and which I didn't even I knew Mark Hamill had a voice in the movie, and I didn't realize who he was until afterwards because it didn't sound like him.
Yeah.
He did a good voice. I won't give it away if you want to see who he was, but it was interesting once I realized that was him. Oh, that was Mark. Okay. There's great voice actors all along. There's a possum family that was really fun, but also a lot of the dark and morbid jokes come from that. But yeah, there was just such beauty to the emotion. It could make you tear up. It could make you cry. It's got a heavy emotional lift to it because Roz's main directive becomes I got to get him to eat, I got to get him to swim, and I got to get him to fly. That's what I have to do before migration happens because he can't stay here for winter and everything else. And so that's what a majority of the film is, and we get some hilarity of doesn't know how to swim, doesn't know how to get food, and seeing the food fight back, and learning how to fly. And it's just I'm going to show him how to swim my parents taught me, and just throws them in the water and other stuff. But there was just such heart and beauty behind this. I just couldn't get over the visual aspect of just how gorgeous this film is. The color palette and the use of colors highlighting different things was just so gorgeous to look at. And I watched it in 3D, and the 3D helped. I don't think it was a necessity for this film, but it looked good in 3D, but just the visuals overall was so good and backed up with a great little soundtrack. Only a couple songs with lyrics, but they pack a punch when they hit. And I mean, it's just a great story overall, great acting, visually beautiful. Like I said, it's one of my front runners, if not the front runner for the best animated feature. And it could even be up there with one of the best films of the year, just because it was done so well.
Yeah, I agree. And it hits all the right notes in what you want in a good movie, right? It's got a good mix, like we said, of drama, suspense, humor, heartfeltness. It's one I think it doesn't matter what age you are to get enjoyment out of. It tells a good story. There's a message in it for everybody. There's, the dialogue even is so smartly written in this film, which is a testament to the incredibly talented people that put this movie together. And it's so funny, even so simple as this Gosling is being raised by a robot. So as it gets a little older, it starts kind of talking like a robot too, and kind of quirky and socially awkward, and just kind of overcoming that and seeing the arc that Bright Bill has in the movie is just awesome to see, and it was so smart and well written. Like, it's visual, like you said, can't say enough how visually stunning it is. I didn't see it in 3D, and it's an absolutely gorgeous film to see. You don't have to see it in 3D or you probably want to see, if you can watch a 4K version of it, amazing. Like, just so incredibly well made that, you know, it comes around to the end of, you know, setting up potential more if they wanted to turn into more.
They could revisit this world
into more film, and it's so good. Like, I know we've started kind of putting like our own scores to these movies, and honestly, if I were to give it on a 1 to 10, I would give it at least a 9, maybe 9.5 out of 10. I hold it that strongly. I'm trying to avoid talking about the entire plot of the film just to not spoil it for anybody, but like, it's up there. It is fantastic. I'd say it's a 9, at least a 9 out of 10 for me.
Yeah, I would put in the same 9.5 out of 10. Like, it is a great film. I said it's got some dark, morbid humor that some of the younger, if the kids get it, it might be a little too much for them. But it's really smartly done. There's a lot of humor, but there's a lot of heart. There's emotion. It pretty much hits everything, and it's one of the best films I've watched this year, and it really
Absolutely.
deserves to be seen. And like I said, I still can't get over just how visually amazing it looks. So big props out to the animators, the art directors, everyone who brought this to life. And I did love Lupita when she did an interview. She gave her props to the animators too. Like, we're just here to bring a voice to the amazing work that these animators have done. And I love to see an actor kind of give that prop, because as a designer and stuff, a lot of times you don't get that accolade because you get the finished product out and people like it, but it goes to the directors, it goes to the voice actors, it goes to the company, it goes to different things. It doesn't go to the person who actually built and did the thing. So for her as an actress to give the props out to the animators when it was such a gorgeous film, I really love that she did that. And because she had a phenomenal performance, but it was backed up by such phenomenal animation.
Absolutely. It's going to wind up on my best of list for sure when we do one at the end of the year. It's going to be top probably 3 or 4 or 5 for me for sure. Like, it's just so well done. It's definitely a highly rewatchable film that when it makes its way out for people to check after the theater, like, I think this is still going to be a one that people will go back and watch repeatedly with their families as well. I remember walking out of the theater and just listening to the families and their kids just glowing about the film and how much they really enjoyed it. Kids were like, I want to see it again. I want to see it again. Like, it's got a high rewatchability for it for sure.
You see, I'm going to do a little PSA because of my experience. Me and my wife took our kids right after school, and for a week we had the theater to ourselves, which was great. And after the movie started, the movie's already rolling, so you've got the 25 minutes of trailers and everything already over, and 2 people walk in. It was an older couple, and they sat directly behind us. So again, entire theater is empty. Just the 4 of us right up front in the middle, and they sit directly behind us, and they talk. Now, again, we've talked about it before, and we've talked about with movies, especially like the Avengers films and everything else. If there's a big, exciting moment or something that you get into and you scream out and stuff, we're okay with that. Like, you're experiencing the film and you're doing that. Like, these people were just talking to talk. And I asked them to stop talking, and they refused. And literally, like, the guy was like, oh, I'm disappointed in the popcorn today. Like, why do you choose to talk through a movie? Like, you're there to experience a sound, your experience to see the film. When there's only 4 other people in the theater, you sit directly behind them and talk through the entire movie. Don't be those people. Do not be those people that talk through the entire movie. Even me and Josh had it for one, The Haunting in Venice. It was just me and him, and then a grandma and her grandson come in, and there's 1 seat in between us and them. Entire theater is open, and they sat right next to us and talked. Like, don't be those people. Think about others. That's what I kind of hate where society has gotten lately, is that people don't care about others at all. You don't think about anybody else. You want to talk about how bad your popcorn is during the movie. Why? It has nothing to do with the movie. Just watch the movie and think of others. Well, if I'm talking, it's going to interrupt these people. Or if you want to talk, go sit as far away from anybody else as you possibly can and keep your voice low. They weren't trying to keep it low. They were asked multiple times to stop talking. They refused to stop talking. It was just ridiculous that there's 6 of us in the theaters, 4 of us together and 2 of us together, And my kids were very well behaved, didn't talk at all during the movie, but these two grown adults couldn't stop talking.
Yeah,
don't do that.
It's unfortunate that this is a reoccurring theme, and it's something that I know has kept quite a few people that I know from really actively going to the theater, and it's a shame because we keep having to say this like all the time. Like, don't be these people at these films. Like, it already costs enough money to go out and do this. It's not an inexpensive, especially if you're with a family. It's not an inexpensive night out. Like it costs money to get drinks, get snacks, get everything like that. And, some of that can be mitigated by bringing it in, which, some people frown on, but it's still a thing that happens. But still, like, don't go into the theater and have a full-blown conversation. That's not the time and place for it. Like, that had anything to do with the film. Like, and I'm sorry you guys had to have that experience, but this seems to be more commonplace. And honestly, I start even like getting a little bit of anxiety when we go see these films because I want to get lost in it. And obviously with us having this podcast, like I want to be even more attentive in watching the film so I know what I'm talking about when we come back and do these reviews. And to have that experience tampered by people who just don't know how to act in public, like they act like they're at home watching the movie. You want to have these conversations at home when you watch it. Be our guest. Go nuts.
Wait till it's out at home and do that then.
Yeah, like don't ruin this experience for other people by either, like I see people all the time still have their phone on completely bright and they're out there just like checking their phone in the middle of the movie like 3 seats down and it's blinding everybody around you. Like there's a certain etiquette to like doing these things that, like, to be quite honest, I'm not biting my tongue as much anymore, where it's just like I'm calling out this behavior and I don't like doing that necessarily in public, but it's like something's got to give to like tell people that like this is not like acceptable behavior in a theater like this, and we're sounding like a couple grumpy dudes. It's because we are like we're tired of dealing with this in like a public setting like this. They tell you before the movie starts all the time, silence your phones, don't ruin the experience for other people, and people are just ignoring that and just acting however they want to, and it's unfortunate.
Yeah, and if you go to the Alamo Drafthouse cinemas, which I wish we had one close, they pretty much tell you they will throw you out and ban you if you talk during a movie. Like, they expect you to sit quietly with your phone off and watch the film and enjoy the film. Like, again, if it's a moment like an Endgame or Infinity War or something crazy's happened and people are cheering and talking a little bit about the movie, that's perfectly fine. We're all into that experience. It's when other people are taking you out of the experience because they're talking about anything but the movie and just talking to talk or on their phone, checking messages and Facebook and everything else. Like, it's not cheap. It takes a decent amount of money to go to the theaters. We know it's still kind of a luxury to a lot of people to go to the theaters. But if you go to a theater, turn your phone off, turn your brightness off, turn your ringer off, put the phone away, and don't talk. Talk after the movie. The credits are going, talk away. But don't talk while the movie's going on, especially if there's only one other group in the theater with you and you're going to try to ruin their experience by talking through it. Why be those people? Try to think about others and stay quiet and watch the movie. Yeah. Like, sorry for going on another rant, but it was just a ridiculous. We have it sometimes with teenagers and us. If you know how they're going to be, these were very grown adults, older than me, that couldn't sit through a movie without talking, that had 2 kids in front of them trying to watch a movie that it's made for everybody. We'll always advocate that animation is for everybody. But again, this is
still geared towards kids.
Geared towards children, and you're talking through it. Don't be those people.
Yeah, don't ruin that experience, especially for the kids. You know what I mean? Because there's enough distractions out there. You don't need it during your movies as well. But I'm glad you said that, and I'm glad you brought that up because
I'll come back down off my soapbox now.
I appreciate that. Come back to me, man. It's all good. But yeah, just do better. Be cool. Just be cool. I say that so often to so many people. It gets kind of old, but just know how to behave in public, man. Don't ruin other people's experiences because you can't function with certain social norms. Like if it's that big of a deal to you to like talk during a movie, just don't go to the theater. Don't ruin everybody else's experience.
And it was more aggravating in the end because we did have it to ourselves, and we didn't expect to have it to ourselves for so long, but it's such a good movie that we were so enthralled and just in, and it had our attention all the way through to be broken up by people talking 4, 5, 6 times about.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Like one woman, his wife, I'm assuming his wife just screamed out, "Oh, that's a woodpecker!" I'm like, she's talking about the movie, but did you really need to point out that it's a woodpecker? Like, we're all watching the same movie. We know what kind of bird it is. Do you need to scream it out? Like, it wasn't quiet. It was screaming it out. Like, come on. Like, just be better. Because Wild Robot was that good. That's why I kind of got aggravated by it and wanted to talk about it, because it was such a good movie that I had some of my experience ruined because they wouldn't stop talking. I don't talk in theaters. I don't have my phone out. I am as quiet could be until the film is over, because I'm in it. I'm wanting to experience it and everything else. And The Wild Robot is one that is well worth going to theaters to check out. Just don't be those people that talk and ruin other people's experience. Like, go to the theater and see this movie because it deserves to be seen, not to be talking through all of it, because it ruins. I don't know how you pay attention to the whole movie if you're talking over the dialogue and everything that's happening, and you're also ruining other people's experience. So go to theaters, see The Wild Robot. It is so worth seeing in theaters. It's in theaters now, but just don't be those people to talk.
Couldn't agree more. And, we'll continue to bang the drum. If you see people out there acting disrespectfully, ask them to be quiet. If they're not willing to do that, go get somebody at the theater to kind of put a squash to that. It's time that, we kind of, I hate saying take the theater back, but it's time that we, stop allowing, other people to ruin our experiences because they don't know how to act publicly. It's something I'll always advocate for. We're obviously huge proponents of going and seeing these films the way they're meant to be seen in the theater and having that enjoyable experience. Stop ruining it for other people.
Yep. So after all that's done, let's talk about what's coming up this week, because there is a lot of stuff coming out. And I'm going to butcher this movie's name, and we're going to have to be saying it a lot in the next 2 weeks, but we have the sequel to Joker, Todd Phillips' Joker, coming out. Joker Folie à Deux is out this week, and it's already got some kind of mixed reviews. It's hard because I think reviews started coming out 3 weeks before the movie came out, so we haven't read any reviews. We've just kind of seen their overall, but I'm looking forward to seeing it. I love, the Joker was such a big surprise with how just dark and disturbing and well acted it was, and I'm curious to see what they were able to do with the sequel here. But we also have Monster Summer coming out this week as well, but On Demand is where we have just a huge week of stuff. So the biggest movie of the year, Deadpool and Wolverine, is coming home to buy on demand on October 1st. So I think it's October 22nd before the physical edition comes out, which I think Walmart has one where Deadpool is more featured and another where Wolverine is more featured. So you can choose whoever you like best there if you want to pick up the physical edition. But yeah, Deadpool and Wolverine, it's big one. A couple more days from where we're filming this is going to be out on digital, and it's kind of leading the way for a lot of other movies here.
Yeah, I'm so excited for that one to come out. Big week for On Demand, like you said, so much stuff. But our favorite movie of the year, spoiler alert, I don't see anything the rest of the year beating it. I'm excited to see several more films that we're going to see throughout the rest of the year, but it's going to take something really, really, really special to beat that movie for me. I'm excited that it's finally coming home. I will be watching that several times when it comes out.
Oh, yeah. So we have Kevin Smith's latest, the 4:30 movie, is also out with My Penguin Friend, which looks like a good little family film, and another one that I've been really looking forward to see, but it aired nowhere near us. No theater carried it, is Strange Darling. I've heard a lot of good things about this film, a more independent film that, we do want more people to go see these smaller independent films so they keep getting made. All of those will be out October 1st on demand along with Deadpool and Wolverine. But we also have Batista's latest, The Killer's Game, and VHS Beyond, so this is a sequel to the cult classic VHS. Both of those will be out on October 4th on demand.
Yeah, and excited to get those out as well. I know we didn't get a chance to see The Killer's Game in theater, but definitely excited to check that out on demand when it comes.
Yeah, coming to Max on October 3rd is Salem's Lot. So this adaptation, this newer version of Salem's Lot of Stephen King, novelization, it's been through everything. Originally it was supposed to be out in theaters in 2022. and then it got pulled, and then it was supposed to be out in 2023. Then it got pulled again, and we had no idea if it was ever going to get released. It almost seemed like it might be one that was going to get shelved, and we were just never going to see it. But they finally decided just to put it out on Max on October 3rd. So we're finally going to be able to see what this adaptation is. So we really don't know if did it go through so much because it was bad, or did they just not know how to market or put this movie out?
It's definitely one I'm excited to check out just because of all the stuff that's come out around it, just in time for spooky season. I'm excited for that, but excited to check that out, good or bad. I kind of hope it's good, but I'll reserve judgment until I see it, and if it's bad, you'll definitely know.
Yeah, on the TV side, so we had premiere week, so a lot of our cable and broadcast shows are coming back, and streaming shows are coming back. So we have a few new ones and interesting ones that are coming back this week. So we have a new reality competition series called The Summit, where a group of people have to try to make it up the summit of this mountain in 14 days, but along the way, they have to vote each other out. It looks kind of interesting. We're big Survivor fans, and those type of reality competition shows, it's going to be interesting to see exactly how that plays out. Yep. I think you get an early preview of that on September 29th here. The Walking Dead, Daryl Dixon, The Book of Carols, as a second season of his show on AMC. That's also out on September 29th, which I still haven't finished the main Walking Dead, so I haven't watched any of these spinoffs. I haven't been able to get myself to go back and finish. I want to finish it. I just haven't found my way back to finish the final season of The Walking Dead before I dive into any of these spinoffs.
Yeah, I'm excited to check it out too. I still haven't finished it either. The completionist in me, it's driving me crazy because I want to see this through to the end, and excited to see some of these other spinoffs too, but still going strong. It's getting another season on AMC. It's coming out. That's exciting. I wanted to talk about the next one. I know you've been talking about a lot of the coming up, but as a pro wrestling fan, gonna do it. WWE's NXT, which is kind of their development brand. It's like a third brand with Raw and SmackDown everybody knows about, but NXT has also had a place for years now on Tuesdays on USA. It is now moving to the CW network with their initial launch for a live show this coming Tuesday, October 1st. It's going to be in Chicago. It's going to be a big deal. They're moving networks. That's a big deal for them. It was a good get for the CW. You add WWE programming, it's going to raise the profile of any network that you're on. So huge get for them. But October 1st, brand new episode for WWE's NXT. So if you're into that, check it out.
Yeah, a lot of movement for WWE. Of course, we've talked about several times that Raw is going to Netflix at the beginning of the year. We have NXT changing channels. So there's a lot of movement and changes with wrestling right now.
Yeah, and SmackDown moved back to USA off of Fox. So they're back in talk of potentially... Now that Raw's leaving, that 3-hour block of wrestling is going to be on Friday nights. It sounds like it's going to go from 8 to 11 on Fridays starting in January. They haven't officially announced it yet, but something to keep an eye on. But that's definitely where those shows wound up.
Yeah, the last show I want to talk about is a guilty pleasure show of mine. It's Forged in Fire. It's back on the History Channel for season 12 on October 2nd. This is one kind of like The Office and some other shows where if I see it on, or if I see it's like some of the seasons are been on Netflix and other streamers, like it's one where they forge knives and swords and just forging a lot of stuff. And I've loved it. It's been so much fun to watch. Like I will sit and watch 2 or 3, 4, 5 episodes. They even did a reality competition series based around it, which was okay. I'm not sure if that is returning or not, but I love Forged in Fire. It's been a ton of fun. It's just, I love seeing things being made like that. I want to. There's actually a place down in Tennessee, a contestant who was on Forged in Fire. He has his own shop opened up where you can go forge. Like you can forge. Your kids can forge, you can make your own knives and stuff down there. And that's one thing I'm going to do on one vacation when we make the trip down or something. I'm going to go forge something because of this show. Like I've watched every season and I'm excited to see more of it, even though it's them forging different swords and knives, but I can't get enough of it.
Yeah, it's fun to see the creativity that goes in the type of thing, the precision and the skill that it takes to make those things as cool, look as good as they do. Just fantastic to watch. If you ever get a chance to watch it, there's 11 seasons of it out already. You can go back and watch it. I believe they're all on Max, if I'm not mistaken. I think that's
some of them have been on Netflix, but it airs on the History Channel, so it's been a little weird trying to find them because I think there was only like one season left on Netflix, and I wasn't sure where they ended up past that.
Yeah, I think the History Channel wound up on Max, but I could be wrong. Check your streaming service, whichever one you have if you're interested in checking it out. I think you'll wind up really enjoying it because it does take a lot of talent, precision to make those types of things. I see why you enjoy it as much as you do.
There's some interesting characters that get on there too.
Of course, you have to be interesting to do any type of creative work anyway. So that's definitely a fun one to check out that we both recommend for For sure.
Yep.
But that's going to do it for this week's episode. We can't thank you enough for your continued support. Please go to willbringthepopcorn.com once again to enter our giveaway for our new merch that Brad's modeling as well for your chance at a 4K copy of Godzilla -1. Also, if you're watching this video on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, hit the notification bell so you get our episodes when they drop every Monday. If you're listening to us in the audio realm, please leave us a 5-star review. It helps elevate the profile of the show. Like we said, we can't thank you enough for your continued support. Coming up next week, we will be reviewing Joker Fale Adieu, Joker 2. Excited to check that one out. And we're finally at the season finale of Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power Season 2. Excited to see where that show winds up as we leave this next season to see what kind of stories they're going to tell us moving forward. Looking forward to that as well. Until next time, I'm Josh, he's Brad, and we'll see you next week.